Good afternoon, everyone. This is Chris Ogle, and this is a very special show that we're featuring today on the Link for Growth Southwest Hearts Community TV show. Today we're talking to Sara Jane about Save Farm Terrace. Now, many of you would have heard about this campaign and the fact that the campaign was successful at the back end of last year in saving the allotments, but the story doesn't end there. So let me invite Sara Jane in. Come and say hello, Sara.
Hi, hello.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Good, good. Right, Sara. So a lot's happened. Obviously, there's a lot of water gone under the bridge. Do you want to just explain very, very briefly what Save Farm Terrace is all about, and tell us about the water that's gone under the bridge and kind of where we go from here, really?
I can, but I don't think it's going to be all that brief because there's quite a lot to talk about, but I'll try. Yes, so basically Farm Terrace allotments are a large site just behind Vicarage Road Stadium. And in 2012 we received a letter from the Mayor and the Council saying that they wanted to use the allotment land as part of the health campus, and specifically as an extension of the hospital. And so we started looking into it, and we realised that the hospital was not in the position to extend or expand, and so we started looking into it and realised quickly that it was going to be housing. So we then started our own little group to fight it, and fast forward 2 years on, and the council put in a submission, because what happens with allotment land is it has to be deregulated by the Secretary of State. So the council put in a submission. We very luckily managed to get some lawyers involved. The lawyers fought it, and the Secretary of State backed down straight away the first time. The council then changed it slightly, put it in a second time. The Secretary of State agreed to it again. We basically appealed it, and to do that we had to go to the Royal Courts of Justice in Westminster, and we took it to a judicial review, sorry, and we won, basically. And so on October the 31st this year we found out we'd won. Excellent celebrations all round. But now what's happened is the council put in a third submission to take the land.
And what does that third submission basically, what's changed in the second submission to the third submission? What was it that you won the case on, and kind of what have they done to combat that? Okay,
I mean, basically, I'm not going to use the term health campus because it's to us it's not a health campus, it's a housing estate. And the housing estate, the viability of this housing estate, the council were arguing, rested on using the allotment land for development, and they said that if they could do that, then the housing estate would be viable. If they couldn't, then it wouldn't. So then the lawyers got into a lot of discussions about numbers, and basically originally they said they needed to build, I think it was 650 housing, because of course some of it will be flats, most of it will be flats, and they needed to build these 650 dwellings, and if not, they wouldn't work. What happened is, in the interim time between them putting in the submission and the submission being granted, they added more housing onto the overall plans. So our lawyers argued, well, hold on a second, you can't say that it's dependent on the allotment land when you're adding more housing to it anyway. So that was how we won the case, basically, because we could prove that it wasn't extremely necessary to the case. So what the council have done now is they've increased those numbers. So they've now said, okay, well, now we need 750. What the council can't do, and are not in a position to do, is to guarantee anything. So they can't say, yes, the hospital definitely needs the land, because the hospital is not in a position to expand. They can't say that they need it for a new school, although they're suggesting it, because, again, all these things have to be finalised. I mean, Dorothy quite happily talks about it as a jigsaw with bits of the puzzles, and she's not quite sure where everything's going to go. And that's our argument, really, basically, is if you're not sure, then how can you take the land? You don't know what you want it for. We believe they know exactly what they want it for, and they want it for flats and a car park for Watford Football Club. But they won't be sort of nailed down to this. They keep saying, well, it's possible this and it's possible that. So this third submission to us doesn't look particularly frightening, let's say, because, again, it's all working on hypotheticals. However, there is a push to build, as you know, at the moment, certainly from central government. And so it seems to us that the government is quite happily rubber stamping all these things because they want development wherever it's possible. And so that's the situation that we're at. So we're waiting. We're putting in a counter submission at the moment. We have until February the 6th. Unfortunately, Watford Borough Council haven't included they have to show us what their submission is, and they haven't included a certain appendix which suggests that we will get an extension, because we need to see, of course, the full submission before we can put in our counter submission. And when that's going to come through, then it goes back into the Secretary of State's team to make up their mind. Now, if they agree to it, then we then look at the case again legally from a sort of the lawyer's point of view to see whether or not we could appeal it again. Sorry, that's my phone. I'm ignoring it. So yeah, so whether or not it will go to another judicial review really depends on what happens in this next stage, whether or not the Secretary of State finds in favour. We think that the council will try and push it through before, is it called Purdy, when all the government council buildings have to stop working before the general election. Right. So it'll be pushed through before then, but we're not sure.
So what kind? I mean, I've been aware of the whole Save Farm Terrace, as many people have, and you read things in the local press, and you get both sides of the story, if you like, and they sound it sounds plausible that we need a lot more housing in Watford, and this is and this is an area that needs redevelopment, but it's a real conflict. I mean, they're in a little bit of a no-win situation as far as the council are concerned, because either way around they're going to upset a lot of people. And I know that you've got a lot of support for this, and I know I've got a statement here which I'll read out in a minute from Sue Murray at the Green Party, and clearly there's been a lot of people getting behind your campaign, because it's not just about Watford allotments, is it? It's not just about this. It's about a principle, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I mean, to go back to the first point, and we really wouldn't be fighting it if we thought the hospital was in a position to expand and that they really did need the allotment land, but we don't believe that for a second. Also, the whole area that they want to develop is massive. And if you go behind the allotment, you walk down, you've got the river at the bottom. If you walk right along there, you'll soon get an idea of the size of the land. And there are 120 plots on Farm Terrace, so each 120 people basically could have a plot there. So it's a big site, but we worked it out. We're only about 15% of the whole area that they want to develop. So our argument has always been that they could have both. They could have the allotments, and they can have housing, and they can have commercial shops, etc., etc. But what I'm hearing time and time again from local residents is that, what parking is like anyway in West Watford, it's horrendous. You then look at school places, they're terrible, etc., etc. And so quite a lot of people are unhappy about the housing development in itself, whether it be on the allotment land or not. But you're absolutely right. I think people have seen are now becoming aware of the fact that when the council talk about it's a hospital or allotments, that it's not, A. And B, we have one twice. This is a third time, and now it's starting to look slightly vicious, I think, to other people. And of course the council are using a lot of taxpayers' money for all of this, because we won, so they have to pay the court costs, and now the court cost for going to the Royal Courts of Justice, oops, I've lost you, it's quite expensive. So all of that, yeah, but you're right, it's also about allotments up and down the country who are facing this problem. And it's also about the significant idea that a little group of people won't be bullied, that they will stand together, they will stand their ground, they will get a lot lot of support and that we can fight and win. It's very, very, I think we're the first case of this kind to go to a third submission, because generally councils listen at the first one. When, you know, we handed a petition in 2012 to the council saying please don't build on it, please don't build on it, generally councils back down at that point. If they don't, then it's very rare. We're certainly the first allotments to take it to the Royal Courts of Justice and win. So yeah, it has become a massive campaign. You know, we're featured in most of the national magazines, and again, this is really confusing to me as a Watford resident, because I don't understand why Mayor Dorothy would want to keep going at it when she knows what a public case it is, and how, you know, I don't want Watford to be in the press for bad reasons, I really don't. However, it's, you know, all the eyes are on us, and especially at election time, because as you know, Watford is a particular seat, isn't it? So you know, people watch us very carefully anyway, and the idea that this whole election could hypothetically be won or lost depending on the allotments is quite it's quite unique, definitely.
I mean, I'll read out this statement, because I just happened to be invited along to meet the Green Party the other day. I'm not aligned to any party in particular, but it was a fascinating meeting, and the Farm Terrace issue did come up. So Sue did say, well, can I write something, and will you bring it up at the, you know, when you're having this interview with Sarah? So I said, yeah, sure. So I'll just read it quickly. It's not a huge one, but it's a statement re Farm Terrace allotment. Watford Area Green Party are, and have in fact been, the only local political party that have been consistent in their opposition to the loss of Farm Terrace allotments from the beginning. A new hospital has never been part of this so-called health campus. Like most people, we'll be happy to see enhanced hospital facilities. However, the current plan does not include any such increased facilities, nor has it ever included improved hospital facilities. Mayor Dorothy has repeatedly stated that development is viable and will go ahead, even if the allotment can't be included in the plans. The ruling Liberal Democrat Council, along with the developers Kia, have confirmed on many occasions that the development of this housing estate is viable without the use of the allotment land. The desire to include the allotments arises from a wish for increased profits. Obviously, we recognise the responsibility of the council to ensure best value for local people. However, financial profit is not the only measure of value. As a party, the Greens recognise the wider holistic benefits of allotments, especially in such a built-up area as West Watford. So, I think, you know, as a sort of outline, that they pulled up a couple of points there that you've said earlier, in that, you know, that there is a question over whether the allotments are actually needed for this to be viable. And I spoke to one of the people at Kia at a jobs fair last week. He was at the in Langley's suite where they had the jobs fair. And I quizzed two things really. The first one is, why continue to call it a health campus when the only rationale for calling it that was its proximity to the hospital, as opposed to anything else? And why was that smallish plot of land such a vital component in what they were doing? And yeah, the answer was, well, you know, we'd have to go back to the drawing board and waste £4 million of taxpayers' money that had already been spent in the place that we're at. So I don't know, it's a strange one, but you've got the support of the Greens by the sounds of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And also I'd like to add that we have had the support of the Labour Party as well. The Labour Party have been fantastic with us. So but the Greens and the Labour Party have been brilliant. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know is the answer to that, because I was asked it just this morning by a friend saying, why is it worth them keep coming back for it? You know, what's in it? And I think people are beginning to suspect there's some sort of ulterior motives, or there's some backhanders going on, or so. I don't know. I really, to me personally, and this is just my opinion, I think that Mayor Dorothy and the council, in their vision of how that land will look, don't like allotments. Basically, and I think they look tatty and they look unkempt, and certainly at the moment they do, because they closed the waiting list in 2012. So what happened was, when I first got an allotment 6 years ago, it was at full capacity, so every allotment plot was being worked. And then gradually, of course, people stopped using it, people give up, etc. And those plots were not being handed out to anybody else, and people weren't able to put their names on the list. So of course, a lot of them now are derelict. That's not to say there aren't people that want them. I know a lot of residents, especially in St James's Road, Liverpool Road, Cardiff Road, those areas, who would like an allotment. But I think that whereas some councils have vision and can see allotments as being really important and see them as beautiful things, I think unfortunately our council doesn't. I think our council has quite an archaic view of them, and that's the only thing I can think of as being the true reason why they're persisting. Because certainly the money issue, I can't see how that, that you were talking about with Kia, I can't see how that works, because on many accounts, one, they're spending so much of the council taxpayers' money anyway. Secondly, as I said to you before, they're not able to say, yes, definitely this will be here or that will be there, because they have to do all the consultation process, they have to do all the planning, etc. And although they put it in for things like the roads, the allotments are going through on a separate planning permission request. So they've not even started looking at it yet. And originally, if you remember, before 2012, the health campus was going ahead without the use of the allotments. So what changed overnight, I don't know, but I can certainly say that it's a real shame, because first of all, personally, and of course I would say this, but I do think that the allotments are necessary in West Watford. They've been there since 1896. They've survived 2 world wars. They've provided thousands of families with their own fruit and veg. And, at the moment we're looking at food banks, aren't we? Especially in places like Watford, where people are going to these food banks. And the ability to be able to grow your own fruit and vegetable, especially at this particular time when the economic situation is so terrible, is really important. But also, you've got this idea that it's a community thing, and West Watford is very multiracial, very integrated. It's one of the reasons I love it, and nowhere more importantly than an allotment where it's not important what race you are or what religion you are. The only important thing is sort of how big your potatoes are and how you manage to grow such great carrots, and it really brings communities together. So, and if you've got people living in flats, there have been a lot of flats that have gone up in Watford recently, and certainly I think that on the housing estate they want to build there's going to be a lot more flats. So green space is needed more than ever. But going back to the national issue, I think Farm Terrace is at sort of the forerunner of what's happening nationally up and down the country, because I'm constantly being contacted by people who are losing their allotments and are looking for us to help them and to advise them about it. And what's happening is they have to rehouse us. So what they've said is they were going to move us to Lower Paddock Road, in near Oxley Village. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't drive, and I have 3 children, so going up to it takes me possibly about 7-10 minutes to get down to Farm Terrace. That's with wheelbarrow and the kids. To walk to Oxley Village will be, we measured it, and it's just over 2 miles away, and a lot of roads to cross as well with children, which isn't great. Now, there are some plots admittedly available on other allotments, but the idea is you'd want to move as a community. But I think it's quite scary, the idea in itself, that you could get rid of this green space and plonk somebody somewhere else. Because to me, it kind of opens up floodgates for parks, for example. When are they going to stop? When are they going to say, well, hold on a second, we really need to build, we're going to get rid of Cassiobury Park, but the good news is we're going to put it in Bushy. You can't do that. It doesn't work like that. You can't equate it. You can't create green space. All you do is get rid of it. So I think it's quite frightening, and I think a lot of people are very seriously worried about it.
I mean, there's a lot of good points there. I mean, I wasn't aware that they'd stopped handing out those allotments. So when did they stop doing that? Because obviously one of the issues is they're very underutilised, they look a bit scruffy. Well, of course they would do if there's no one using them. So when did they stop allocating them?
2012.
On the basis that they would be requested in some way for something, yeah.
Yeah, and through, I'm not a professional allotmenter, and I'm not a professional campaigner either. This is the first time I've done both of them, but I've been obviously I'm now very informed, and this generally seems to be this is what happens when councils want your allotments. First of all, they come and they ask for a slice for a little bit, and they say, "Oh, don't worry, we won't come back for any more." And this happened to us in, I think it must have been about 2011. You know, the flats that went up behind the stadium. Mm-hmm. They were for key workers, supposedly for key workers for the hospital, and they asked for a slice of the allotments, and we agreed to that. And that's what they took. And then, of course, I think this is kind of a trial thing. They want to see how easy it is to get it. And then they closed the waiting list without us knowing. And we were kind of aware that, you know, Bob maybe had gone off his plot, but nobody else had come to replace him. But you're in your own little world down there, so you don't think about it too much. It was only when the submission was sort of handed in that we realised what had happened and what had been happening to us. And I think there's a lot of preventative things that allotment holders, certainly in Watford, but also around the country, can do. And one of them is to make sure that if a plot isn't being used by somebody, that somebody else straight away is able to take it on, because the more you use them, obviously, the better, the more protection you have. But yes, with our case, it was really quite snidey and quite awful the way that it happened, because I know lots of people who would love an allotment down there, but they can't have one. So that's been a massive problem, and it's one that I feel very bitter about when the council talk about it as being derelict land, because you want to say, but it's you that made it like that, you know.
Yeah, and I mean nowadays with the the whole ethos of buying local and growing your own fruit and veg, because of austerity measures and actually people looking for alternative ways to grow food in ever more innovative ways. Of course, allotments are vital. Even if they gave people half an allotment, it's still quite a big chunk of land for you to grow quite a lot of stuff. And fruit and veg swaps on allotments have sort of sprung up as people have said, well, I don't mind growing loads of vegetables because I enjoy gardening, but I can't eat them all on my own. So we swap them. And I mean,
it's not just, of course, the food; it's also the exercise and sort of the mental space as well. Because my husband goes down there to de-stress from work, and you get lost in your digging, etc., etc. And I think that's really important. And for my children, it's been an amazing experience for them, because they've grown up being able to run off and go adventuring and make dens, not necessarily where I can see them. And I don't think there's anywhere nowadays that's safe enough to allow them to do that. And they've had this great upbringing where they've gone off and picked pears from trees and got chatting to older gardeners and younger gardeners and made friends. So it has been, I know I make it sound idyllic, but that's because it is. It really is. And every single time I take people down there who aren't used to allotments, they're overcome by the fact you forget you're in the centre of Watford. But ironically, one of the reasons that Watford Borough Council said, and they actually brought this up in the Royal Courts of Justice, was that another part of the reason was there'd be so much building work going on around the allotments that it would be disruptive. So therefore, they were arguing that they should take the allotments, because if not, we would be disrupted by the building work going on around us. Which even the judge had to say, no, that's ridiculous argument. Another argument they used, and they still continue to use, is that they're creating green space. Their argument is that in getting rid of the allotments, they'll make a community garden and they'll make green space. And again, the judge went, no, I'm sorry, you're getting rid of green space. There's no way you can argue around that. And a community garden is very, very different from an allotment. So, they have kind of these things that they throw out. It's just it's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
So the next step is getting an extension for the submission once you've got the complete new proposal from the council. And
can I just add that people can put in their own submission, they can write letters in support of us or against us if they want to, and the details of that are available on Save Farm Terrace Facebook the website, which is a Wix one, Twitter. If you just Google Save Farm Terrace, you'll come up with something, and people can write letters of support, and all of that really helps us as well. You know, also I'm in the process of starting off a petition. There's going to be a nationwide petition to help protect allotments, because I found through our own dealings and also from talking to other people that it's very easy for councils to deregulate allotments. I'll give you a frightening fact, which is through a Freedom of Information Act, we found out that out of 198 requests to the Secretary of State to deregulate allotments, this was from 2007 to 2014, only 4 were turned down. So 194 applications were rubber stamped, basically, and that's quite scary. So I'm starting off a petition which hopefully will be online, if not this weekend, then certainly next week. We're just kind of finalising a few points, and it will be a petition through change.org to help support allotments and to change some of the things we've been talking about. For example, to stop councils from being able to close waiting lists. Believe it or not, it's not, when you want to deregulate an allotment site, it's not necessary for you to have any communication, open communication with the plot holders. It's good practice, but you don't have to enter into negotiations. So that's another one that we want to change. There's a whole list of them, basically, that we found that people have fallen foul to. So if your viewers, and I'll be putting links up as well to that, that would be great. I mean, it's worth mentioning as well that we made it very clear, even when we won the case, that should the council decide to go for a third submission, we would be willing to compromise, meaning that we would be willing to give them a certain amount of the allotment land if they needed it. But the council weren't willing to compromise at all, and in fact they even invited us to a meeting at the council hall, at the town hall, and when we went there, there was no open negotiation at all. They weren't willing to even talk about it. They were just saying we need the allotments and that's it. So it's tended to be quite bitter, unfortunately, between us, and it's not something that we wanted. You know, it's been a lot of hard work. It's been a lot of time and energy, and although it's had some fantastic moments, it's also had some pretty dark moments too. So we really don't want to be here again, but unfortunately we are, and we will fight. We will fight again. You know, we've proven to have, you know, that we can win, and I think that we've had so much support that there's no way that we could stop, even if we wanted to. But we don't want to. We want to fight, and we want to save Farm Terrace.
Excellent. Well, I think we're up to date now as much as we could be. You know, I think there are lots and lots of people in Watford that feel that perhaps it could have been done in a different way, or it could have had a different outcome, but it's been our way or the highway type of thing, and you've stuck your ground, and I think a lot of people are behind you. So if people want to actually support you, they can go on your website and they can complete. Is it a petition, or is it just letters?
The national one will be a petition. We've done various petitions, which unfortunately, again, the Watford Borough Council have just gone, thank you very much, and put to aside. This will be a nationwide one that will go to the DCLG, the Department for Community Land, I think it is. But anyway, yes, that will be up there. But certainly, if anybody wants to know more information, they can. If they just Google it, it'll come up with all of it, including all of the newspaper articles and the TV shows as well that have been done on us. But thank you as well for your support, Chris. That's really, you know, important that we get the chance to put our point of view across, because that's one of the hardest things for us, has been going against the you know, the spin that the council is able to put out with, oh, it's a hospital or an allotment, and it really isn't. So it's nice to be able to get our point of view over. So thank you for that.
No, I mean, we're all about trying to help get a balanced, the balanced facts, really, so that people can make their own mind up about what they think. It's not fair when one side gets an opportunity to get all the press and the others that don't. So no, that's fantastic. Thanks for coming on and telling us where you're at, and I wish you all the best with it, and let's see what happens. But it looks like it's going to be a busy March and busy.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Now, take care now.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.